Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another video. I don't know if you've noticed now, but I've changed the name of my channel to Carnormous. So I wanted something that stands out. So that's going to be the name of my channel from now on. And Ian, how are you going tonight?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So we're going So I think my audience is kind of interested in EVs and the technology in them. So we're going to maybe do a little series on some of that technology in EVs. And so the first one we're going to start with is the batteries, because that's the main component of a car, I guess, of an electric vehicle anyway. So Ian, what can you tell me about batteries in the? Apparently, there's two in most EVs. Is that right? And why do we need two batteries?
Well, you need two batteries because a battery powerful enough to drive a vehicle for any distance, and even the distance of just a hybrid, is powerful enough to produce lethal electricity. So, because you don't want lethal electricity always connected, and you need a way of connecting it, you need a smaller battery that's not lethal. So there's one non-lethal battery and one lethal power battery. Any car in Australia with a lethal power battery has a blue triangle on the number plate these days. Well, in New South Wales it does. I don't know if it's the same in all states.
Yeah, I guess it probably will be, but that sort of, yeah, so yeah, it is. Yeah, we've tried to figure out ways of trying to make a car a high voltage battery switch without a low voltage battery, but it just seems so easy just to put a 12-volt battery in. Is that
well, as soon as you have an electrical source that's got that power, then that power is lethal.
Yeah.
So, and it's a combination of volts and current. So just as static electricity is huge voltage but small current, and it's not lethal even though it zaps you, there's this cutover point between voltage and current where it becomes lethal, and all the cars that have a battery source that warrants a blue triangle need another battery in order to have that battery able to be disconnected so that the car is safe effectively to touch anywhere when the other battery is disconnected. And the low voltage battery, all it has to do is activate the switch to connect up the big battery. So when the big battery's off, it provides power, but as soon as the big battery's on, then power stepped down from the big battery powers all the low voltage components of the car. So it goes through a circuit and takes over. So the only thing the battery like the one there, the 12.8 volt, and they can be up to, as the Cybertrucks demonstrated, 48 volts, even though 48 volts can also be lethal if it's a huge 48 volt battery. But 48 volts in the Cybertruck is non-lethal, and their big batteries are 800 volts, I think, in some cases. But your low voltage battery is needed to power things when the car is off and to activate the contactors to bring on the main power.
Yeah, because I've read a lot of stories about, because I'm in the Atto free Facebook groups, I've read a lot of stories about people having problems with their 12-volt batteries, and the 12-volt battery in the Atto free is a lead acid, and I'm not sure if that was the right choice, and because everybody else seems to be using LFP batteries. Is that some reason for why there's so many batteries dying? Or
it's probably part of it. I mean, the original, very first Atto 3 that was in Australia had an LFP battery in it. The production ones moved to lead acid for the 12-volt battery, or for their safe battery as opposed to lethal battery. And maybe they didn't have all the software ready for having a lead acid as the main battery. The other cars that BYD brings into Australia have LFP batteries for the low voltage battery as well.
Yeah, because I've recently Yeah, I've recently changed mine to an LFP, and I've had it in for 7 months now. And I thought, oh, I don't know if this is going to work, but it actually works fantastic. It's really, I'm really happy with it. I'm so happy I've actually imported some extra batteries. So if anybody on the YouTube channel wants to get an exact size battery to what's in the car for the Atto 3, yeah, I've got some sitting in my garage. So if you want to contact me, if you want a 12.8 volt LFP battery, you can just contact me, and I'll leave the link below. So Ian, yeah, so I guess that's about as much as I want to talk about for those. And now, what's the other battery in the car? What have we got there?
Well, we've got a whole lot more cells. I mean, the interesting thing is there's this ambiguity between the term battery and cell, where battery, the original use of the word battery, is something that can batter by being used a whole lot of the same thing to produce more power. So if you have a battery of tests, it does more testing. If you have a battery of guns, it's good for shooting down other ships in the old days with cannons on them, or military installations. And if you have a battery of cells, you can produce a far more useful amount of electric power. The weird thing is, of course, you have a AA cell, which we call a battery, even though there's only one cell. But so overall, we use the term battery, and we can mean cell, but in this video, we'll probably use cell to describe just one, to make it clearer.
Yeah, because this is a rendition of one of the Blade battery cells that's in the BYD cars, and this one is the 3.2 volt cell, and there's around 120 of those to make up around 400 volts, I think it is. And so you get 400, so 120 times 3.2 volts, roughly around 400 volts is the voltage of the battery pack of a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. Yeah,
the 60 kilowatt Atto 3, I think there were two different battery packs with two different voltages originally. Well, not in the Chinese version. In Australia, we only get the 401 volts or something. I forget the exact number of cells, but it's the number of cells to do that. The smaller battery has actually less cells, but they're smaller cells so that they have less amps. The size, there's two ways of making more ampere hours per cell for the same voltage effectively. One is you can stack a couple of cells in parallel, or you can just make one big cell, and one big cell is pretty much the same as cells in parallel. So I think I've got a picture here of like a D cell battery that we get and an AA cell battery. And we have the AA is a lot smaller than a D, but they're the same voltage.
Correct.
So if you just make the same cell a lot bigger, it's the same as putting several of the AA cells linked as in parallel. So they're just connected across, as opposed to series where you add the voltage if you connect the plus to the minus. If you connect the two pluses and the two minuses, you get more current, same voltage. If you connect plus to minus, you daisy chain them and you get more voltage. And the batteries in the Atto 3, or in all Blade batteries, all the batteries are in series to each other to add up the voltage.
Yep. And great. And so now we're on to talking about car batteries. So the BYD are famous for their LFP, which is the lithium iron phosphate battery. And then we had the upper version of batteries, which was mainly nickel, cobalt, manganese, or the ternary battery.
There's about three different chemistries, but the main one, other than Tesla, is an NCM battery: nickel, cobalt, manganese, as the other three elements. Tesla use an NCA with nickel, cobalt, and aluminium instead of manganese.
Oh, right.
As
So
their
what's
main
the
one.
benefit of having the blade battery over the other types?
Well, the blade battery basically has more cycles that you can put it through for its life. It's also lower cost. So it doesn't have the rare earth metals, which reduces the price. It's slightly lower voltage, but every time you run it through the equivalent of one full charge cycle from fully empty to fully charged, and remembering that 2 half charges are not the same as 2 full charges. 2 half charges only make 1 full charge cycle. So if you only use a small part of the charge cycle, you actually get the life of even more than the life of using the same from fully flat to fully charged all the time. So you might get 3,000 cycles from fully flat to fully charged, and you might get more than 6,000 from halfway charged to fully charged, for example, because you haven't run it to the extremities and it goes a little bit less. But you get more charge cycles out of the LFP. The voltage is a bit lower, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, what I also found out is that the recommendation for any other battery chemistry is you only charge it to 80%, which I think is not ideal, but you can charge it to 100% if you're going on a trip or something like that. But as a day-to-day thing, they recommend only to 80%, and I think that's not very. Yeah, it's sort of like cutting back your range. That's what the biggest appeal to the LFP battery was for me, that you could charge to 100% every day.
Yeah, it's simpler in the sense of, because you've got that longer life.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that impacts the life difference is that on the NCA and NCM, if you take them to 100%, that reduces their life. You've taken them to that higher voltage level of charge, which tends to break down the cells a bit faster.
Yeah.
So you avoid that in city driving is the idea. But it's then one more thing to worry about. Am I charging to city driving levels or country driving levels?
Yeah, and that's something that you always want to think about. But yeah. And also, what sort of life can we like? There's been a lot of confusion about how long these batteries are going to last. So, what are the best lives? What are the best scenarios for LFP? How long are they going to last in cars?
Well, it really comes down to about that, the number of cycles.
Yep.
And a 30 kilowatt hour battery will only last for half the driving distance a 60 kilowatt hour battery does. So it's not just the chemistry, it's how big the battery is. The bigger the battery, the more kilometers you can do on it for any type. So if you have a 120 kilowatt hour NCA battery, you should be able to drive at least, you should be able to drive as far as even the best 40 kilowatt hour LFP battery. But basically, size for size, if they're equal, the LFP can last up to 3 times longer.
Yeah, because I've heard some reports about LFPs, some of them getting close to 1 million kilometers on one battery in China. Is that true?
Well, it would be. I mean, if you take just doing, and I mean, I haven't pre-done these maths, but if you say that these are typically in taxis, doing the cycles that actually get in an Atto 3, for example, would get you close to 500 kilometers because they're in pure city conditions, urban conditions. So if you've got 500 kilometers per charge and you did 1,000 charges, that's 500,000 kilometers you could go. So if you got 3 of those, you'd be 1.5 million kilometers you could go on a battery.
Right. And do you think battery, like, I know what's the future of batteries? Do you think they're going to keep getting better and better?
I think they'll keep getting better and better. This is a topic for a whole other video. Yeah. I think they'll get to the point where 10 years from now, we'll have batteries possibly small enough that they'll be in modules you can swap in and out of cars, but that's at least 10 years from now.
Sure. Yeah, because
But they'll just keep getting better. I don't think that we've magically reached the point where we've stopped the evolution of battery technology. You look back 10 years and you see how much it's evolved in that time. And, the Nissan Leaf, for example, came out with a 20 kilowatt hour battery and it was extremely expensive. And now you get, no one puts 20 kilowatt hours in a full-on EV anymore.
Yeah, because I know BYD are bringing out a version 2 of the Blade battery probably starting next year, 2025. We might see it in some cars. Hopefully it comes to Australia. So that'd be good to see, because I think they're quoting 10 or 15% increase in capacity and charging and things like that.
Yeah, it would be 15. It's at pack level, I think it changes from 160 kilowatt in gravitational density, which is not energy density, not the same as energy density in terms of space, but for the same weight, it steps up from 160 kilowatt hours to 190 kilowatt hours, which is almost 20%.
Right.
If you take it as an increase.
Yeah. So there definitely is. Yeah, it's definitely getting better at a very fast rate. And if we're going to look back in, like you said, 5 or 10 years to see what happened to battery technology in that time, and it's going to be astounding.
Yeah, and cars with 120 kilowatt hour batteries will probably be the norm. Yeah. I mean, the BYD Seagull is going to have a version 2 for Europe and export markets that could quite possibly use the first version of the Blade 2 batteries, which would then enable making a Seagull with the same range as an Atto 3.
I see. And how heavy would that battery be? Was it a bit, say, 20% less than?
It would be basically the same weight as the current Seagull.
Okay.
So without an increase in weight, it could gain, or battery size, it could gain enough power to get a range similar to an Atto 3.
Right. Yeah, because that really when CATL and BYD, they seem to be the two most innovative in the battery industry at this moment in time. And I think we're going to see a lot of new Chinese cars come to market, and they're going to be having the CATL batteries. And I think the Xpeng G6, I think that's got the CATL in it, and it charges extremely fast. And I think it's 250 kilowatts. It'll take a 250 kilowatt charge.
Once again, this is one that that gets mistaken a lot. It's also proportional to battery size.
Yeah.
So if you double the battery size, you double the current at which you can charge it.
Yeah. For
any battery chemistry, it takes the same amount of time to charge it, no matter how big or small the battery is.
Yeah. It's easy to put those big numbers into big batteries. So
So I mean, you can charge your electric car with its huge battery. In the same time, you can charge your mobile phone, basically, if it's got the same battery technology, and they're quite often not that different.
Yeah, well, I'm just comparing it with the Atto, where we can, if we're lucky, we can get 88 kilowatts if the battery's not too hot. And then Xpeng's going to come out with a car that's with 2-year-old battery technology that can do 250 kilowatts for the same size battery. And I'm thinking that is a huge
jump. Is it for a
jump.
60 kilowatt hour battery?
Yeah. They even quote the LFP at 250, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Is it a 60 kilowatt hour LFP?
60 kilowatt hour, yeah.
Okay,
so
right.
We'll see. Yeah, from what I've read so far, that's what they seem to be quoting, but they quote the same for all the chemistries, and I'm thinking, something doesn't sound right.
Sometimes it's ambiguous. Like you'll see that they have this, and they quote this battery charging speed, but you'll find that battery charging speed only applies to the biggest battery, and the battery not charging speed in time, but charging speed in current only applies to the biggest battery, and it sounds like it applies to them all, but it doesn't.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see for that one, but I'm very excited to see that car come out. So And yeah, so fast charging, we could see cars charging next year 20 minutes. So from in what we're doing now, 20 to 80%, and I think we're doing 40 now, 45 in the Atto free. So that's
Well,
going to be
you're getting two things. The battery size is going up as well, which means that if you're going 20 to 80%, that's going to take you further. So you don't need to charge 20 to 80%.
right.
Get the same distance anymore. So it gets quicker on two grounds. One is that it actually is a higher C-rated battery, whereas 1C battery will charge in 1 hour. A 2C battery chemistry will charge in half an hour. A 3C battery chemistry will charge in 20 minutes. And that doesn't matter whether it's a 100 kilowatt hour battery or a 50 kilowatt hour battery. It'll still charge the whole battery if it's a 3C battery in about 20 minutes. Now, they tend to stretch a little bit and use the C rating based on the 20 to 80% rather than the 0 to 100. They do it proportionally, but it won't charge proportionally. So, if 20 to 80% is 60% of the battery, they say, well, 60% charges in this time, that's the same as 100% charging at 3C. But you can't charge the 100% at the same speed. But anyway.
All right. And the next one, I've noticed, I've read CATL is now going to look at building a light aeroplane or a passenger aeroplane, and it's going to be battery powered. And it's a couple of tons, the plane, but I'm not sure how many seated this is. Probably 50 seats or something like that, and it's going to be battery powered plane. So that'll be, I'm pretty sure it's still in the prototype stage. So do you think we'll come to a stage where we're seeing battery powered planes going from one continent to another, Ian?
Yeah, I think we will. It's a matter of time. I don't think there's much other option, to be honest, and that the only other option really, I suppose the biggest one, is biofuels or at least synthetic fuels. But it's expensive. You can make the equivalent of petrol and you can make it from clean energy, just as it's actually more efficient than making hydrogen from clean energy, and easier to work with because it becomes liquid instead of a gas that's tricky to work with. And you can make it, it works, but it's expensive. So the batteries will eventually get to the point where you can make dense enough ones for more and more planes, but you can already do some. There are already some planes in service that are pure battery, but they tend to be small and short runs.
All right. Well, that basically takes me to the end of my episode. And for anybody watching this, we're going to actually change to live broadcast. So in the future, you'll be able to post questions, and you can ask us questions during the videos if you've got anything else you want to know about batteries while we're here. And we're not quite sure what to talk about, so why not engage the audience? And so this will be my last recorded one, and from now on we'll be going live. So for anybody who's got a BYD Atto free, I just opened a parts shop here in Sydney, Australia. So I've got quite a lot of parts. So I'll leave a link down below to my store. And it would really help out the channel if you could buy a few things. So,
probably one of the next ones to talk about is state of charge and how that works.
State of charge. Oh, geez. Okay, we'll have to leave that one for another time.
Oh, yes.
I think that's about as much as battery talk as people can handle, I think. So
that's a big topic.
Yeah. No worries, Ian. Well, thanks for your input tonight.